massacre, massacre, massacre.
Hearing justice, massacre. Hearing massacre, massacre. Hearing justice, massacre, massacre. Hearing massacre, 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 massacre. Massacre, 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 massacre. Massacre, 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 massacre. Massacre. Hearing massacre, 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 massacre. Hearing
Massacre, massacre, massacre.
Tearing massacre, massacre. Hearing, tearing massacre, massacre, massacre. Hearing, massacre. Hearing,
Tearing massacre, tearing massacre. Tearing justice.
hearing massacre. Hearing massacre. Massacre.
Massacre, massacre,
Massacre.
justice,
Massacre.
hearing,
Massacre. Hearing
Hearing justice. Massacre.
massacre.
Massacre. Justice. Massacre. 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 Penny. Justice.
Massacre. Justice. 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 Massacre.
Massacre. Justice. Massacre. Justice. 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 Massacre. Justice. Justice.
Massacre, massacre, massacre.
Massacre.
I was justice.
Massacre. 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 Massacre.
Hearing justice, massacre, 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 justice, massacre, justice, massacre, 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 justice, massacre, massacre, massacre,
Massacre.
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 Hearing justice. Massacre. Justice.
hearing, massacre, 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 massacre,
Massacre. Massacre.
Massacre, 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 massacre,
Justice. Massacre. Massacre. Massacre.
massacre, justice.
hearing, massacre, justice, massacre, justice, 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 massacre,
The massacre. Hearing justice.
Hearing massacre. 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 Justice.
Hearing massacre. Massacre. Hearing